Welcome to The Longer Game, the only show that's dedicated to the future of retail. We bring on real-life people in the retail industry. We talk about their experiences, we share their stories, we apply it to what's currently going on in the market, and we look towards the future of retail. You could say it's Retail Reimagined. My name is Michael Maher. I run a customized, done-for-you service agency called Cartology that helps brands win on Amazon. Now, while my expertise stems in the Amazon field, we bring on a wide array of guests because retail is expansive. You've got e-commerce. Yes, you've got marketplaces like Amazon. You've also got brick and mortar that is evolving. You've got logistics. You've got technology, finance. There are so many aspects to retail, and it's complicated. So we're here to bring you the entire story. Do you think that you have an interesting story and you'd like to tell it on the podcast? Then go to thelongergame.com and fill out a form to be a guest on the show today. You can catch The Longer Game on any social channels: LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and our website, thelongergame.com. We've got all awesome guests on this show, so that I will promise. Are you ready to hear more about the future of retail? Let's get down to business. Welcome, everybody, to The Longer Game. We are the podcast that talks all about retail. I'm your host, Michael Maher, the Chief Idea Officer of Cartology, an Amazon brand domination agency. I don't normally intro myself, but I felt like doing it this time. And we have all kinds of guests on the podcast to talk about retail, talk about different aspects of retail. And today, I have with me Nathan Hirsch, lifelong entrepreneur. I know that's true because he's told stories about flipping stuff, I believe in like grade school, maybe even high school. And he's got a couple companies right now, Econ Balance, original founder of FreeUp. Welcome to the show, Nathan. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I mean, you and I go way back. You and I met in the early days of FreeUp, both as a client and a service provider on the marketplace. So I'm always appreciative of people that wanted to work with me when I was younger. People didn't know who I was. I'm still a nobody, but more of a nobody back then. So
sure.
I appreciate that, and thanks for having me on. So yeah, I'm a longtime entrepreneur. I've been building businesses since I was 20. I had a lot of real jobs in high school and early college, and learned a lot about sales and marketing and customer service and what the real world was like after college when you get a job and work 40 hours a week. And I wanted no part of it. So started buying and selling textbooks out of my college dorm room, sold a lot of these books on Amazon. This was 2008, 2009. Got a cease and desist letter from my college telling me to stop competing with the bookstore. And that changed my life. I started experimenting on Amazon and seeing what other products I could sell. Found a really nice niche in baby products and toys, which is kind of ironic because all the stuff I'm buying now for my kid is all the stuff I used to sell back when I was 20. And that led me on a great journey. I met my business partner, Connor, in college, and we got hard on work growing this Amazon business. Ended up selling about $25 million over 6-7 years, but we never built our own brand. We never did private label. We were drop shipping from US manufacturers who, at the beginning, they didn't know what e-commerce was. By the end, they realized they don't really need us and they could just sell directly. But it was a great way into learning the ins and outs of business, one of which was hiring people. And hiring college kids, super unreliable, which led us to virtual assistants. And we had all these great VAs for my Amazon business. And when Amazon took off and everyone wanted to be an Amazon seller, we started offering VAs and freelancers to these sellers. And that became FreeUp, our first B2B business, which was a lot of fun. We got to learn marketing and B2B and partnerships and podcasts and conferences and all this stuff that kind of went with growing that kind of business. Had an exit in 2019, which we can talk more about if you want. And since then, we've been building this portfolio of businesses with operators, which we were talking about before. And my goal is to not only make entrepreneurship simpler for millions by sharing my content, but to build all these companies that run without me, that have operators, that are getting leads. And I personally am retired from all conferences, all work travel. I only want to run businesses that have me completely remote, out of operations. And that's kind of my goal.
I think what's interesting is a lot of people maybe they talk about process or they're afraid of process because they feel like it's gonna put them in a box and they're not gonna have the freedom to be who they are. And a lot of what you've built was based off of, from what I know, FreeUp. You had a lot of process there. You knew about a lot of problems that people had. You've been able to create all these processes, and lease those or rent those out essentially to people so that they could perform better. And I honestly think that when you have structure, there's actually a lot more freedom in that, because once you know, hey, here are my boundaries, I can now use my creative freedom in those boundaries, and it actually helps save some mental energy.
Yeah, I think as an entrepreneur, you got to force yourself sometimes to put yourself in a box that'll allow your business to be better off for it. Like, I know I can go hustle. I could go to every single conference. I could network. I could do all this stuff. But if I want to build a lifestyle that has a business that gets customers a different way, I have to force myself to not do those things. And that makes me hire really good ads people, hire really good partnership people, get them to be really good at what they're doing so our business grows without it. And it kind of forces you into a good situation. Another good example is our bookkeeping business. I'm not a bookkeeper. I couldn't do the books even if I wanted to. So I had to hire a really great bookkeeper, a controller with 30 years of experience before starting a bookkeeping company, and really trust her to manage and help us hire bookkeepers, because like I don't bring that much to the table when it comes to bookkeeping operations. So by kind of getting into that mentality that you can't do everything, you don't want to do everything, there's limits on your time. You and I are both dads. There's family time and other stuff that during the free up years, I was just hustling 24/7, and I had no responsibilities, no kids. But yeah, that you can only do that for so long. So I kind of like making sure the way that my businesses are forced to get clients and grow is very much in line with what I want to do personally.
I feel like going to those conferences, they're cool, but it really depends upon your business and who's at that show if it's actually going to get you sales. I think a lot of people go to those events and think I'm going to get a lot of customers, and they don't, but they keep going, and it ends up just being a kind of a networking event, which is okay, because if you want to network and maybe build more people who want to refer other people to you, that could be part of it. But I think a lot of people trick themselves into thinking I'm going to be super successful by just going to all the shows.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, there are great conferences out there. One of the little hacks I can give that we figured out in the later years of Free Up is, instead of sponsoring a booth or just like getting a ticket to the conference, sponsor VIP events with other partners you have. Maybe it's a software company or something like that, because then you own the networking party. It's your networking party. You can invite everyone. They'll invite their clients. Everyone knows who you are. And it's a lot better than sitting at a booth all day for multiple full days in a row. But yeah, I mean, like when you have multiple businesses, conferences just becomes a little crazy. Like I'm going to go to every e-commerce conference. I have an agency bookkeeping business, so I'm going to go to every agency conference. Like at some point you have to draw the line, and you do fall into this trap, I think, of like, how do I get clients? How do I just go out and I'll do whatever it takes to get clients, when really it might take longer to hire a really good ads person, and maybe you go through a few and you refine your processes, but long term you're going to be a lot happier getting clients that way than, hey, the second you're burned out from conferences, all of a sudden you can't get clients anymore.
I think one of the interesting things, I'm in an entrepreneurship group, a couple guys who, it's all like faith-based, but it's about entrepreneurship, like how can we better each other, there's accountability, it's a really great group. One of the people said something that I thought was really interesting, and he said, I didn't know how to grow my business. Like, of course, I want to sign more clients. I want to get more revenue. But what was the thing that was going to work? Was it SEO? Was it going to events? Was it Google Ads? Like, what were the things that I did that I need to do in order to grow my business? And so he did all those things, tested them, just had relentless metrics of like, this is working, this isn't, let's kill this if this isn't working. And he finally found the thing that led him to where he is now. And he's like, okay, I'm in a commodity business. I could do great with like person-to-person selling, but I just need to be the top person that's on the page when it comes to Google. And my team needs to be super responsive. If we can do that, then we can actually book more people.
Yeah, love it. Lots of testing, lots of trial and error. And I mean, one thing we learned, not to jump around, but like going through the free up sale, one of the things they really liked is we got clients in a lot of different ways. Like, sure, there were conferences, but they weren't going to go to those. But our SEO was great. We had partners with everyone in the space that would drive traffic. We had an affiliate program that would drive traffic. We would put out like constant content. So there were just a lot of different ways that we would get clients. And that's really what you want in your business, because you never know. Like if you're completely dependent on Google, for your example, and I'm a big fan of SEO, and we put a lot of, like, we start a blog from day one in every company we build, and we have an SEO company. But if Google changes something, you don't want that to be the only place that you get clients. You want to have a diverse way of of getting clients. And that's going to make you a stronger business going forward.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think you want to have a couple of different methods. I think you can also, like, there's this fine line too of like, what is our niche? So like maybe I have multiple methods of getting people, but what is our niche and what is our focus? You can maybe start to go too broad if you get a lot of people from different places that are not your focus, or they're asking you to do things that are not in your wheelhouse. What are your thoughts on like niching down versus going really broad?
Yeah. So free up, for example, year one, we were just Amazon sellers. That was our target. Year two, we kind of branched out, Shopify, Walmart sellers, stuff like that. Year three, we went after the service providers, agencies, SaaS. And then by year four, we kind of opened it up to everyone. So I'm a big fan of niching down. We do that with our bookkeeping business. Ecom Balance is for e-commerce sellers, and we spun off a different brand that's for agency and SaaS. At the very least, it makes your marketing very confusing if you're going after lots of different niches instead of one. But I do believe at a certain point you can branch out, and you can get creative on how you do it too. You can have a separate offer, a separate domain, whatever, even if it's kind of the same core business. But I think niching down more often than not allows you to focus and really understand your ideal customer, and it's probably better for building a business, but there's always exceptions too. Don't just niche down because two people on a podcast said you should niche down. It's got to make sense for your situation.
I think the really interesting thing about the niche thing is you have to start somewhere. So if you want to eventually, you can try to be all things to all people. It will be very challenging in the beginning, but if you can really build process and really know what your service is by hitting a certain market, once you do that, then you can start to say, okay, now we can build on it, which is what you did with Free. Started open up to other people. And I love the ideas about different URLs and targeting different people, because the message, like the actual service that you provide, bookkeeping, it's probably pretty similar for an agency versus an e-com company. There are differences, like you're not taking on cost of goods sold most of the time on an agency unless you own inventory from an Amazon perspective. But what the problem statement is a lot different for those people, even if you're doing some of the similar services.
Yeah, and I would even argue, like, a lot of people make a mistake. They're like, this is my niche, before they've done any market research or gone out and talked to their client. Like, let's say you have a Facebook ad agency, just to keep it simple. Go try to land 5 real estate clients, 5 lawyers,
see
5
who works.
bookkeeping businesses. See what works, talk to them, see what message resonates with them. And before you just go all in on one, do a little trial and error, a little experimenting.
Yeah, I like that too. I mean, test, see what works, and then go all in, build, and then from there you can start to create something that's, a lot bigger. And brands like, I don't know, really big household brands like Coca-Cola or whatever, like they might be for a lot of different people, but they didn't start just going after everyone. I mean, they started in certain retail locations, and then they started to expand, grew with, bigger marketing, like eventually became a bigger brand, but it wasn't an overnight success. I feel like one of the things with being an entrepreneur right now is a lot of people want to go from, 0 to 100 million in 2 years. And that's just not going to happen for a lot of people.
Yeah. And I mean, even those big brands that apply to a lot, they'll do targeted campaigns like Dove for the soap and body wash and stuff like that. They did a targeted campaign for like young men. They're like, hey, we're crushing it with women. We're going to do this big campaign for young men. So even the bigger companies, the Cokes of the world, they'll sit down and be like, hey, we're going to do this marketing effort just towards this niche and go after them that way, even though everyone's buying their products.
Yeah, love it. What's one of the biggest problems that you see e-commerce business owners having?
So, I mean, relevant to the bookkeeping and why we started it, most people don't really understand their numbers. They see money.
What's a balance sheet?
Yeah,
what's
exactly.
A balance sheet?
They just see money going in and out of their accounts. They're making money they're making decisions based on gut and instinct, and they don't actually know like what is most profitable, whether it's SKU, whether it's marketplace. They might be wasting a lot of time on Amazon UK when their margins there aren't that great. So like understanding your numbers is such a big part of being an entrepreneur. And I was guilty of it too. Back when I was in college, I had no idea that you should be getting monthly bookkeeping reports. I waited till the end of the year. I hired college kids to do my books. It was a disaster. But one of the best decisions I made with FreeUp was hiring a bookkeeper from day one, Maher. You might remember him. And that's the decision we ever made. Not only did we make good decisions every month because we knew exactly what was making us money, what the numbers were, But when we went to sell the business 4 years later, we had clean, immaculate books going back to day one that helped us pass due diligence and sell it. So that finances, it's not sexy. Most people hate it. They find it boring. You can't ignore it. You're always at a disadvantage if you don't really understand your numbers.
There's a guy a small business owner that I mentor, and one of the things I tell him is, what's your target for the year? Like, okay, it's this number. Where are you at compared to that target? I don't really know. When's the last time your books were done? He does his own books because he's got a couple of transactions. I mean, it's not a ton. I've had to do my books as an e-commerce business owner. I would not want to keep doing them. It's a pain in the ass. But having someone like you to do that makes a world of difference. But if you don't track and measure things, it's very hard to manage them or to go towards a target. So what gets measured gets managed. If you don't know what your target is, if you don't know what a profitability target is, and then you don't know where you actually sit in relation to that target, it's really hard to know if you're on track or if your business is a success. So I love what you're saying there, like actually measure things and get reporting on. And then I think it's up to the business owner, like, are we in growth mode? Are we willing to reinvest all the profits that we have? Are we wanting to maximize profitability? Who are we paying? Should we be paying these people? Like, all those questions can get answered just by seeing a financial statement.
Yeah, and I mean, you should never be doing your own bookkeeping. Terrible use of your time.
For the most part, 100% true.
And 9 times out of 10, and we see this all the time, people who do their own books, you just have to pay someone to redo it later. Like, you're probably not a bookkeeper. You're probably going to make all kinds of mistakes. It's way more expensive and harder for someone to clean up your mess than it is for them to just do it right from day one. And even if you were a bookkeeper or a CPA in another life, I would still argue it's a bad use of your time, and you'll make way more money focusing on other parts of your business. So get out of that trap. Like, you're not going to go out of business because of your bookkeeping expense. Bookkeeping is pretty cheap. If you're small, a few $100 a month, there's probably people cheaper than us. But you will go out of business if you don't know your numbers and you're just blindly making decisions and all of that. So that's kind of my 2 cents.
Allocate your time best where your strengths lie. So if you're going to spend a bunch of time bookkeeping, maybe build a bookkeeping business around it. If you're not going to do that, maybe you shouldn't be doing your bookkeeping and you should be focusing on the sales or the marketing or whatever it is that you're doing.
Right, exactly.
I love the unsexy stuff. I think unsexy stuff is what makes the sexy stuff really cool. If you've got a great process in an agency, people hate the agency world, but if you're in the agency space, it's about ads, and at least in the Amazon side, ads and the marketing and all that stuff and the creative. But a lot of agencies fail because they have no process. They will rely on individual contributors to bring something to the table. When that person goes and there's no documentation, what does the next person do? Is there training? If that's answers to those are no, then you're basically relying upon you're now taking your time to go train that person, which is not a good use of your time, likely. And now you're relying upon this person to contribute something that someone else was doing that maybe they may not be fit to do.
So one of the things we did at FreeUp, we had all these different teams, right? We had customer service, we had billing, we had fulfillment, which was matching clients and freelancers, and marketing. So we had team leaders for each one, and we put the team leader in charge of the SOP. And every quarter, it was their job to go through the SOPs and update them and see what's missing, what's confusing, what's not clear. And they had to submit it to us so that we could take a look. But we didn't want to spend time building SOPs. Connor and I were busy. Too many teams. We weren't in the nitty gritty, but everything needed to be documented. And it was on their schedule every single quarter. Fast forward ahead, went to sell FreeUp, going through due diligence. They wanted to see our SOPs. They said we were the fastest people to send it to them. They requested it, same day, sent back. Here are all the SOPs for all the different parts of the business.
Because you didn't have to rewrite them. Write them from the get-go. You already had them documented.
So that's kind of a good habit to get into. Like, if you're an entrepreneur and you're building SOPs, you're probably ahead of the pack. But being even more ahead of the pack is get your team to build the SOPs and be responsible and take ownership of the SOPs.
Yeah, enabling your team, delegating and elevating. What's the thing you're going to spend your time on, and is actually going to allow you to, let's call it your zone of genius. Like, where are you going to have the biggest impact? And then enable your team to do the things that they need to do. And I think a lot of times leaders end up taking on more work because they think, oh, this person can't do this thing. But if they're trained and they know how to do it and they have a process, it's very likely that they can do it and that they want to do a good job. You just never put them in the driver's seat to do that.
Yeah, agreed. And not everyone wants to do that. I mean, we always have, first of all, it's important that early people you hire in your company, they want to be leaders, they want to be managers, they want to take ownership of stuff. I think it's really hard if you don't hire those people. But as you get bigger, you have to have conversations with different people in your team to see what they want to do. We have this great bookkeeper who we tried to get her to manage people for a while. And phenomenal bookkeeper, more experienced than most people on our team, just hated managing people, didn't like to do it. And finally found a different role where she was reviewing books before they go out. And it's perfect for her. But just because someone's good at their job doesn't mean they want to be an owner, be a manager. Like, people want different things. And it's really hard to try to force people into those roles. So at Free Up, we sat down like, hey, you're really good at customer service. Do you really want to manage the customer service team? Because that's a way different role than just being the best person at customer service.
I've made that mistake so many times where I just call it, I don't even remember what I call it anymore, but I basically overhired someone or over promoted. Like, you're great at what you do. I think you should now manage people. And some people just don't have that gene, let's call it. And I think that's okay. You don't have to be great at managing people. You can be a great individual contributor, and that's what helps make your team actually be better, be more successful, be more efficient, and let the person who's managing lead. But yeah, those two things are very, very different. And I also think there's a difference between leading and managing. Managing is like, okay, let's just, get stuff done. Leading is like inspiring people, giving them vision, helping them to move things forward. And then there are even different styles of leadership that are, hey, we're going to get things move forward, but it's all going to be fear-based. Versus, hey, you've got a seat here. We want to hear from you, but we're going to give you vision. We're going to give you inspiration. We're going to actually enable you to do the things that you need to do.
Yeah, we're very much in lockstep there. And getting people to run meetings too. I mean, again, our goal is to have multiple companies. Doesn't mean we can be in every single meeting. So we have to have people that are going to be able to run meetings efficiently, not waste time. It's a skill. It's a skill you can learn, but not everyone is good at that. And you see a lot of entrepreneurs. I forget who was talking about this, but like the second they take a step back, everything kind of falls apart. And so It takes a lot of effort and systems and processes to be able to remove yourself and have things really run smoothly, and even better than that, actually grow and expand.
When people do step away and things start to fall apart, where are you usually seeing them, or where do you believe that the biggest gap is? Like, what's one thing maybe that they could do to make that transition easier for them?
Yeah, it goes back to what are people tracking and what are their processes? Kind of like you said, if you don't track it, it doesn't exist. And so let's say, we've got like this media company that's responsible for Connor and my social media. We're on this mission to make entrepreneurship simpler for millions, grow our following. We use that to push people to our businesses. We have this guy who runs our media company, but then under him are these different people. We've got an Instagram expert, we've got a LinkedIn expert, and the guy up top isn't an expert in all these different things, but he has to manage all of these different people, and they each have their own metrics to follow each month, followers to hit, post impressions, stuff like that. And meanwhile, they're also trying different things, and the algorithm is always changing. So if things are not going well, we're going back to the top and saying, hey, how are you managing these people? How are you holding them responsible? Is it an issue with the goals and the expectations that are set? Is it an issue with the actual specialist? Do we need to get a different Instagram specialist in there? That's kind of what we look for. And it's the same thing, whether it's customer service, marketing, whatever it is. We go to the top and we figure out, what are you doing to track people and to hold them accountable? And is it a tracking issue or is it a people issue? And the people issue is usually a lot easier, because replacing someone up top is a lot harder, or getting them to change is a lot harder.
The tracking piece is really interesting, because I think most, or even just setting expectations, but that's kind of tracking to me is an accountability measure. Here's your goal. Where are you at compared to that goal? And I think a lot of people get nervous when they have to track something, because they think, what if I don't hit that goal and I'm going to fail? And I don't think it always has to be that way. It could be, hey, let's get 100,000 impressions this month. And maybe you get to 50. Then you say, hey, what's the difference between 100,000 and 50,000? Okay, well, this didn't perform so well, and maybe we can make these adjustments. Like, if you can partner in that and help enable people to know, hey, it's not like, if you don't hit this metric that you're going to get fired right away. That's not necessarily the case. But if you continually can't hit your metric, then it's, okay, do we have the right process? Do we have the right person? Are we creating the right content? Is something here not working? But it allows you to then go back and have documentation of, hey, this is working, this is not working. Or like, even from the financial statement piece, you can go back to January and say, okay, we weren't really profitable that month at all. Well, what did we do differently? Oh, well, we lost this client. Okay, well, but then we took on this client in February and March, and so we had much more profitable months. But if you're able to go back and track and hold people accountable by saying, even on like having a scorecard, like my team has an internal scorecard. Everyone tracks something. We report on it on Monday. Where's your scorecard? Where is it at? If something's off, if something's on track, great. If something's off track, let's talk about why it's off track.
Yeah, I love that. And I think you're probably like me. You get kind of numb to failure over time. Like at the beginning, you're scared to fail. And
got to get
right
used
now,
to it.
we kind of go into it like knowing certain things are going to fail. Like you start enough businesses, some of them are going to fail. One interesting thing we're doing now is because we've always been good at the organic thing, like free up, groove organically. We're good at SEO, but we want to add like a paid ads and a cold outbound method to getting clients because we have the systems built. We know if we get leads into the system, they have a good experience, they stick around. So it becomes a game of how many good leads can you pump into the system? Well, we are actually testing different ads people, different email people for our different companies. And if we find someone we like and we trust, we'll add another company to their plate. And if we find someone that can't hit the metrics and can't do a good job, we're going to replace them. We know we're going to fail. If you hire enough ads people, you're going to waste money. You're going to find someone that doesn't work, someone that doesn't communicate, whatever it is. And we're kind of going through that now where some of the people are crushing it, other people we're about to replace. So that's kind of has to be your mentality in business because you never know what's going to work, what's not going to work. Just because an ads person is good with one company doesn't mean they can be it for the other. So you're constantly trying to kind of pivot, adjust, learn, not make too big of a mistake. But when you get that win, it usually makes up for all those mistakes tenfold.
I like what you said. You become a little bit numb to failure and you see it less as a bad thing or an end point. It's just a bump in the road that gets you to the next step.
Yeah. We say that. It still bothers you on some level. Like you accept
for sure.
it, but yeah, you're still like, damn, I can't believe we wasted $9,000 here or whatever. But you realize you're not going to be homeless. It's not the end of the world. Like you'll be okay. And you kind of move on.
I think that's the main thing. Like it's not the end of the world. If my story ends with my last failure, well, then it seems like I'm a failure. One of the other things that happened, I started an e-commerce business in 2010, grew that to 2016, and then it failed. And I had to pivot into the service side, which is when you and I originally connected. And I was building an agency before I even knew it by utilizing free up talent. Like, hey, I need more people to help me in what I'm doing. And so that was when I started creating SOPs. I was already doing it with my e-commerce company when I was selling stuff. But especially hearing you talk about SOPs too, I'm like, okay, I know I need to create a process that's very documented and so that someone can follow it. I'm going to give it to them, check their work, make sure they know how to do it, check it a little bit, a couple more times, and then allow them to have more freedom. And then if anything goes wrong, we can deal with those problems then. And so I was, building this agency before I ever knew I was building an agency. But when my e-commerce business failed, there were a couple of things that I noticed. One is I felt a lot of shame, like, okay, this didn't work out like I wanted to. I was doing well. Now I'm not. Is it me? I realized a lot of my identity was tied up in my business success or failure. But even looking back, my wife was like, you still were kind of stressed a lot, even when things were going well. And like I said, my identity was tied up in being a business owner instead of just being a child of God. And if I were to step outside of that and say, hey, if my business succeeds or fails, it doesn't mean I'm less valuable. It just means this thing didn't work and I need to find the thing that does work, which is, now on the agency side, I love it. I feel so much more called to be there, interacting with people, getting out into the world of Amazon and e-commerce. And I've made a lot of partnerships. But if I had just, stopped and said, okay, I failed, I'm going to give up, I never would have been where I am now. So it was a bump in the road, and not keeping my identity tied to just the success or failure of my business was a game changer for me.
Yeah, I think having a kid changes that too. I mean, me a little bit newer, but like my kid doesn't care if I have a good month or a bad month from business. Like he's just happy to see me at the end of the day of daycare, and it puts things in perspective too. And I'm a big believer in like hustling when you're young. Like when you're in your 20s and you don't have responsibilities, like go all out, but there has to be some kind of end game there where you get to enjoy life and family if that's what you want to do and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think the kid thing is interesting. I've heard A lot of people say, it puts things in perspective. And there's a lot of times where I, am putting my nose to the grindstone and really working. And I've caught myself when my daughter's home in the summer and she's like, Dad, can you watch this thing? And I'm like, no, I'm really busy right now. I can't. And then I replay that back in my head and I'm like, you can't take 2 minutes to just watch her do this dance or do something or like talk to you. Like you can't step away for a couple minutes. Like what's the point of being an entrepreneur? What's the point of being able to work from home if you can't do that? And there's so many, honestly, even lessons that I hear God talking to me internally, not like an audible voice, but I just like, I'm correcting my daughter saying, look, you're disappointed because this thing happened, but that's a part of life. And then I'm hearing it replay like, oh yeah, you were disappointed about this other thing, but that's just life. And I'm like, okay, cool. Touche. I get it. But like, that's been a big character builder for me, but also a realization of like, do I really need to, fill my calendar up with every single little thing? Or is it important that I also take time and spend time with my family? And I think the latter is really what is important, which is why I'm selective about shows I go to, which is why I'm intentional about where I travel, because I don't want to overextend myself and not like my daughter's 11. She's going to be out of the house in 7 years. Do I want to miss that time? Absolutely not.
Yeah, completely agree. One of the biggest changes for me is I've always been a morning person. Like during the free up years, even before Carter, like I wake up 5 or 6 and like that time till 11, I'm focused. Like I'm getting the most done. But with the kid, you can't really do that. Like our kid doesn't wake up at the same time every single day. I've got to get him ready for daycare. I want to hang out with him before he goes to daycare because I'm not going to see him most of the day. So it's an adjustment period because I know that morning from a focus perspective is my best time, but you don't want to miss out on that time. So I don't know, part of getting older and changing how you do things.
Yeah, I like that. I was actually going to ask you what's the biggest change with having a kid, but I think putting it in perspective and being flexible. Sounds like there's a lot more flexibility in your world because of Carter doing that.
Yeah, and the boundaries I kind of started off talking about. Like I don't want to work travel. I don't want to go 4 days without seeing Carter. Like if someone's trying to do a podcast at night or on the weekends, I respectfully decline. Like that's my family time, and I've worked really hard to not have to do those. Yeah. Even if I don't get clients for it, like my businesses have to be able to get clients in a different way that don't require me to work nights and weekends or travel.
Yeah, I love that. Every time I'm about to go somewhere, I'll book something, months out, or maybe a month out if I'm honest. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go book this thing, and the night before, I'm like, I really want to cancel this. I don't want to go. Not because I don't think I'll have a good time, not because I don't think I'll connect with people, not because I won't build relationships and potentially get a sale. I mean, if I'm going to a place to sell, then like a shop talk or something like that, like I'm in those meetings, I'm booking additional meetings. I want to find new clients, but I'm always just like, I'd rather be at home with my family. Like that's just my preference. And I know there's a lot of hustlers out there, which I do respect, and they're speaking, they're doing all these things, but like, I want to be a great dad that serves my kid well. I'm going to be a great husband that serves my wife well. And I can't do that if I'm constantly away. And there's also all these stories of people who are like, I was on the road and I missed my kid. And I'm just like, if I don't need to do that, I don't want to do that. I want to be present for my family and have those memories.
Yeah, love it.
Now, don't get me wrong. There have been vacations where I'm working and I've had to work a lot more than I wanted to because maybe, I had to let someone go and I had to do the work for this specific thing until I hired someone else. But I finally gotten to a place where that's not really had to be the case or be the norm. I've got the right people in place, got the right processes that does allow me to take an actual break, a mental break, and come back refreshed. Because people at my team, when they walk away, they get to take a mental break and be refreshed. I need that same thing as a business owner, maybe even more so because I'm the one that's leading the vision and giving energy to what we're doing.
Absolutely.
What is something that people don't know about bookkeeping that they should know?
Bookkeeping. So I'm a big proponent of dividing and separating. I've always done this. You've got your CPA and your tax person. Keep them focused on taxes. What entity should be? How can you save money in taxes? I have them help me set up retirement plans. All of that. You got your bookkeeper. They're there to do your monthly books. You shouldn't be asking them like, should I be an S corp or C corp? They should be giving you tax advice. And then you got your CFO, which, to be honest, I think most people that think they need a CFO don't need a CFO. Like when you get over $5-10 million a year, maybe you need one. But they're there to help you make business decisions. They're kind of like a business coach. You need a A strong bookkeeper, they take the books, they help you project out cash, project out sales, and make decisions what the numbers are saying. And I think you run into a lot of trouble where you get a CPA who does tax and they do bookkeeping on the side, but they really focus on tax. But then the bookkeeping gets left behind because they're focused on the tax. Or you get a bookkeeper that's trying to one up and do tax advice, or you get a CFO that's trying to do bookkeeping. Divide and conquer, especially if you don't have a financial background. You have no checks and balances if you have an all-in-one service. If you've got different people, they're going to tell you if your bookkeeper is bad or they don't like your CPA or whatever it is, and that's going to help you. So I know people, they don't want to manage lots of different people, but in finance, in my opinion, it's a much better way to go about it.
I think also you can have, if you need fractional support on something, you don't need to hire a whole CMO or CFO. You could hire a fractional person that could help aid you until you get to a place where you need that. But I think if you just have someone doing your books in general and you read those financial statements and you know how to, it's probably going to help you make the right decisions before you get to that mark where you need to, hire someone and really keep a salary person on staff.
Right. Completely agree.
Cool. Well, this has been eye-opening, and I'm excited to have you on and be able to bring some stuff full circle. But if people want to know more about what you're up to, where can they find you, Nathan? Kind of crawling on the floor with Carter, or somewhere else that they should look?
NathanHirsch.com or Nathan Hirsch on any social media channel. If you're specifically interested in bookkeeping, check out ecombalance.com. And always good to see you. Glad we could make this happen.
Man, NathanHirsch.com. That's a great URL. How early on did you snatch that up?
No. So the funny thing is I've been trying to get it for 7 years. I've always been jealous of my business partner who got ConnorGilvin.com. Okay. And then randomly, whoever had it didn't renew, and I snatched it like 6 months ago. So.
Oh, congratulations. That's awesome, man. That's a great URL. Well, thanks for coming on. Glad to have you. That's it, people. We don't have anything else. So show's over. See you later. All right, that was the show. What did you think? That was the longer game. We would love for you to share the show with other people and to leave us a review of the show. So go to iTunes, go to Spotify, you can go to YouTube, comment, leave a review, and share this on any social channels that you are active on and wherever you have influence. We want to share this story and stories like it to as many people as possible. Do you have a compelling story and do you want to come on the podcast and talk about it, and you're in the retail industry, then go to thelongergame.com, fill out a form, and we will contact you about coming on the show. You can find us on any social channels, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and you can go to our website, thelongergame.com, to actually read all of these episodes in blog form in text, because we know not everyone's going to listen. This podcast is brought to you by my agency, Cartology. We are a customized, done-for-you service agency that helps brands win on Amazon. It is super complex selling on the Amazon Marketplace. We help simplify that for you. This podcast is also brought to you by Podcastify Me. They are a full-service podcast production company that designs podcasts around people who are paid for their advice. That is coaches. If you want someone to help create, strategize, and distribute your podcast to the masses, go to podcastify.me to find out more. I've so enjoyed that you've been a part of the conversation and that you've given of your time to hear these people's stories. We'd love for you to share. If you want to find out more, just go to thelongergame.com. Hope you have a great rest of your day. Stay blessed. And until next time, cheers.